Dash, I hear you're a material girl living in a material world.
Okay.
Believe it.
Welcome to the Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Sella, in studio with J Dash and Big Easy. Got our fantasy sleepers, deep sleepers, and comatose sleepers ready to go for you. What's on the docket,
That's right.
Dash?
We got dudes that are locked away.
Believe it. They ain't even in the league yet. Still in college. Dash has been scouting them for years.
We got dudes on call, ready to play.
8th grade middle school football.
Wake up.
Let's start off with our situational starters. And last week, they averaged 17.33 points.
Damn.
However,
Per
Spencer
starter.
Ware was one of them, and he
PPR.
scored 35. Who are you going with, Jim?
I think I'm going to take Travis Benjamin for the San Diego Chargers. He's going up against the Jaguars. The Jaguars' defense is still young and a little inexperienced. The Chargers can put up points. I know Keenan Allen is beat nuts now, so my fantasy team is ruined. But it gives Travis Benjamin a chance to come up. And, I mean, Benjamin did all right for a Cleveland wide receiver when he was out there. I mean, I guess as good as you really can do in Cleveland. There aren't too many players that are successful there. So this is definitely going to be a guy that Phillip Rivers starts looking for. And the Jaguars have a little bit of trouble tackling, and Benjamin's better with the ball in his hands after the catch. So that could really work to his advantage.
Yeah, he had 8 targets last week, 7 catches, but he only had 32 yards. And they're actually saying this other receiver for San Diego, Tyrell Williams, is going to step into a bigger role out there with Keenan Allen injured. Williams had 5 targets last week, just 2 receptions, though he did have 71 yards receiving. So he had more yards than Benjamin. But Benjamin, I mean, we've seen with Cleveland last year, like you were saying, Jim, that he's a pretty good receiver. And if Phillip Rivers and him can get on the same page, I mean, they could do big things out there.
He'll get a lot of catches, I feel like.
Especially, I mean,
yards.
it could be a good thing if Tyrell Williams does step up into a bigger role and play good football. Because, I mean, we've seen Keenan Allen open up things last season for all the other receivers, including Antonio Gates. So if Williams can step up and open things up a little bit, that could help Benjamin as well. How about you, Easy? You have anyone?
Yeah, you know what? We're going to go with, what's that dude's name? Tajay.
Tajay Sharp.
Tajay Sharp, or is the crew around the spread here like to call him Cheddar. But I'll tell you what, I don't know anything about him. I'm just going off your guru status. I mean, Mariota's got to throw the ball, and someone's got to catch it, so why not?
We seen Andrew Luck do big things against Detroit's defense last weekend, even though they didn't come out with the win. So I could definitely see Mariota having a better game this week than he did last week. And Tajay Sharp was his favorite target out there. He targeted him 11 times. He came up with 7 receptions for 76 yards. And we were saying before the week, Rashard Matthews is the most reliable and most consistent out there. But they were saying all offseason, Tajay Sharp, he's going to start opposite of Matthews. Well, they weren't saying that all offseason. Yeah, it was Green Beckham at that point. But they never really said anything about Sharp sitting the bench. He was always going to be a starter. I thought since he's a young guy that it might take a little while for him. But it looks like him and Mariota are on the same page. And they could be passing a lot in this game because we've seen what Stafford did against Indy's defense as well. Now, we both said Tennessee's defense is a little bit better than that. So that they probably ain't going to put up that many points. But like you said, Easy, they could end up having to pass a lot in this game. And Tajay Sharp looks like the main beneficiary.
Tennessee's going to win this football game. I picked them in the pick show. Go listen to that if you got some time. Detroit's got nothing. So
Detroit's got nothing.
Just like their city, they got nothing.
I'm going to go with another young guy here, Sterling Shepard for the New York Giants, going up against New Orleans defense. Now, last week he had 3 receptions on 4 targets. He had 43 yards, but he did get in the end zone, and that was his NFL debut. Obviously, he's a rookie. New Orleans defense was torched in the passing game last week by Derek Carr. And last season, they were just as bad. They ranked 31st in the league against the pass. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game as well. Now, they do have ODB out there, obviously. And actually, Victor Cruz looked pretty decent in the slot. And it looks like he could be back as a at least an option for Manning this season. But really, Sterling Shepard is definitely the number 2 guy out there, in my opinion. He's still a better player than Cruz at this point. Now, he's always going to be behind ODB because he's a beast. But Sterling Shepard, man, he looked good even on that touchdown reception. And I think this is the perfect matchup for him in week 2.
The only time New Orleans defense was any good was when that rapist Darren Sharper was out there. So unless they have people who rape women.
The hottest hitting safety in the league.
Get locked up.
Let's move on to sleepers here. We averaged 13.67 points with our sleepers last week. And that's no quarterbacks, obviously. I'm not counting quarterbacks here. We didn't even take a quarterback last week, though. But a lot of that was Theo Riddick. He came up with 27 points for us. What are you saying, Jim?
Yeah. I'll have to go with Vinny Jack here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're going up against Arizona. I like Jameis Winston and I like Mike Evans, but you got to have something else. And Austin Seferian-Jenkins, I don't is he even playing? Because I didn't see what this dude did last week. I didn't see nothing.
I think
out
he
of
scored
him.
a touchdown, but he might only have 1 or 2 catches.
Their running game is mediocre, maybe a little better. I'm not going to call them a
People
good
like
running
Doug
team
Martin.
or anything.
People like him.
Yeah, the muscle hamster's garbage.
Well, I don't know. One of their other dudes made a sick play last week where he just juked like 3 dudes out. Did you remember seeing that play?
Yeah.
Who was that dude? I forget who he was, but
Sims?
Chris
yeah,
Sims.
I think it was that. I think it was him.
I still just think that Jackson's got a little left in the tank. I mean, this guy's pretty much consistently done it every year if he was healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the better receivers in the league and usually at least 1 or 2 on his team. So I look to see Vincent Jackson have a big game.
Yeah, like we said before, he's playing the slot this year. He only had 2 catches last week for 18 yards, but he was targeted 7 times, and I think that he'll be a little bit more consistent this week. And he has a good matchup. Like I said in our last segment, he's going up against a rookie, Brandon Williams, while Mike Evans is going up against Patrick Peterson, which could be tough for him. So Winston may be looking Vincent Jackson's way a little bit more in this game.
Who's going to win, the muscle hamster or the honey badger? Because they're both in this game.
I would say, I'm going to say the muscle hamster just because I picked Tampa Bay.
So he runs over the honey badger, huh?
Sure, why not?
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Easy?
You know what? I'm setting my personal differences aside, and I'm going to put a quarterback on the board for you guys here. I actually started him in my daily fantasy team to get that money. But we're gonna go with Baltimore's Joe Flacco. Simply because
it's at Cleveland.
Simply because, and we'll copy our famous spread copyrighted saying. Cleveland's garbage. Cleveland is.
Yeah, Jim, you liked them. I'm guessing you don't feel as good about them now.
Oh, dude, their offense is going to be even better with Josh McCown now.
Really?
Yeah. Why not?
That's not even
RG3's
garbage.
career
They're
lasted
like
1 game.
compost or something like that. But
look,
Flacco, I don't even want you to tell me the stats. We don't even need the stats
Mike
for this.
Wallace.
I'm gonna mention something to the people, man.
Let me tell him.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Flacco had a touchdown last week. That's all you need to know.
Threw it deep to Mike Wallace.
That's all you need to know, player. And then
going up against a better defense too. You got to remember going up against Buffalo's defense, over 250 yards, defense. And then you look at Cleveland last week going up against Philadelphia.
Carson Wentz is balling.
Yeah, Carson Wentz had a huge game, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Joe Flacco is more reliable than Carson Wentz at this point. I think Flacco's going to have a good game.
But I guess. I don't know. I don't know if Flacco's going to have better numbers than that.
Oh, he might have similar numbers. Who knows? The game might turn out a little different. But, I mean, if you had those numbers, even 250, 2 touchdowns.
This is a sleeper now. This is like, I know there's no buys yet. And
who knows,
no one, I mean, I guess there are some teams that are starting Joe Flacco.
Well, listen, if you drafted Tom Brady and then took a quarterback late and you didn't like how he turned out in week 1, go grab Joe Flacco for week 2.
That's the only reason to put him in your lineup.
I'm so confident.
Or a daily fantasy.
I'm going to say.
I think he might have cost me $18 to put in the lineup.
I'm so confident in it. I'm going to say go with the receiver for him, too, Steve Smith. He had 9 targets last week. That led the team. However, he only had 19 yards receiving. But again, like I said, it was up against Buffalo. I think Cleveland's defense is a little bit worse. I could actually see Mike Wallace having a another solid game because I think he can get behind this defense as well. But if Steve Smith sees another 9 targets like he did last week, I think he's going to have a bigger game and give you some decent fantasy points. All right, let's move on to deep sleepers.
Dreamers.
Last week, we averaged 9 points with our deep sleepers, so not as great. But we did get 2 of 3 of them did score double digits. So Pierre Garçon got us 11, and Terrell Pryor got you 10 points, Jim. However, we picked Anquan Bolden, who only got 6 points last week.
Fizzled out.
Believe it. So who you going with here, man?
Ugh, you got to pick Tyler Boyd out of this group because you got to know that the Steelers are going to give up mad passing yards next week to Andy Dalton. As much as Dalton's going to be sitting on his ass half the time because we're going to actually get back to rushing the passer, and I do think Pittsburgh will win that football game, we do a good job at shutting down A.J. Green most of the time. Now, Green sneaks out and has a big game every once in a while, but it's like boom or bust with Green when it comes to playing the Steelers. So if the Steelers can shut him down, I think Tyler Boyd will be the guy that can lurk around. And we've seen it early in the game against Pittsburgh. They still didn't tackle that well, you know, when guys were catching those underneath passes right at the beginning of the football game. And I think Boyd's a guy who he's a little shifty. So if he gets the ball in his hand, he can make something happen and shake a tackler and maybe get into the end zone.
And if this week's game turns out like last week's Steelers game, Cincinnati should be passing a lot because Washington was unable to run in that game. And if the two-headed monster, Giovanni Bernard and Jeremy Hill, are unable to get it going, they're going to turn to the pass. So I like Tyler Boyd. He only had 2 receptions for 24 yards last week, but that was at the New York Jets, a tough place for quarterbacks to play because of the wind. And I think the New York Jets pass defense is pretty good. So I think Tyler Boyd's going to have a better game this week. How about you, Easy?
I'm going to stick with quarterbacks here and set my personal differences aside and give you another true champion of ours, Jay Cutler versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I think, Philadelphia, I really don't see them as a quality football team yet. Maybe they just got a little bit lucky, and obviously they played compost in week 1. But Cutler, he's good for a pick and a touchdown, so those will cancel each other out. I don't know.
I think he's going to have more than 1 touchdown in this game. He had a touchdown at Houston last week. Now he's coming to his first home game, man, and against a defense I expect to be the total opposite of Houston. So I think Jay Cutler can give you a good game here.
Well, Alshon Jeffrey for sure.
Yeah, he had a good game last week.
Big time. He's a playmaker.
They do need to get Kevin White more involved in this offense, though. He actually had a couple drops last week, so don't shy away from that, man. You need that second guy. Remember when they had Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey? That made Jay Cutler a asset in fantasy at one point.
Yes.
Now that it's just Alshon Jeffrey, it's a little bit harder. So you need to get Kevin White involved too, and that could open things up for Jeremy Langford. You know, Chicago's offense could be okay. They just got to get that second talent out there. And I'm going to go with an Indianapolis receiver, Philip Dorsett, at the Denver Broncos. We know the Denver Broncos have a very good defense, so it is going to be tough for Andrew Luck in this game, but because it's going to be tough, I think it's going to be a little bit harder for him to hit those guys on the outside, Dante Moncrief and T.Y. Hilton. I think he might have to look at a slot receiver a little bit more. And if you look, Philip Dorsett actually led the team in receiving last week with 94 yards, although it was only on 4 receptions. But Andrew Luck spread the ball around pretty nicely in that game. And I think, again, it's going to be tough for him to hit those targets on the outside. So I think Philip Dorsett can take advantage, and I think he's going to have a big season, to tell you the truth. I said in fantasy, I would have skipped Moncrief to draft Dorsett later in the draft. I think that would have been a better idea for those who went early with Moncrief. I think Dorsett's a big talent. And actually, I mean, he could end up being just as good as T.Y. Hilton in the long run.
T.Y. Hilton,
He's not a monster, you
No,
know.
he's not.
He's good. He's just not a complete beast.
Right.
Steelers were thinking about that guy, but then he went too high in the draft.
Well, really, when T.Y. Hilton came out of college, there was not
was
much
a wild
talk on
card.
him being as an elite player. Yeah, he was kind of a wild card. But after his first few games in the NFL, I mean, people realize how big of a talent he really is. Although he's still not elite, like you said, Easy. But that's it, man.
All right, before we go, we're going to answer 3 or 4 questions from Facebook. I'm in a fantasy football group on there. So we're going to answer these questions. We're going to tag these fellas in our answers on Facebook. Hopefully they listen to our segment. Hopefully they enjoy it. So, first question, 4-. Sal Cusimano wants to know, he's in a 1-point PPR league. With Keenan Allen out, I can pick up Corey Coleman, Tajay Sharp, Michael Thomas, Vincent Jackson, or Travis Benjamin. Who should I get? They all seem about the same. I guess Sharp is the safest option. What do you got for Sal?
Ooh, is Sharp the safest option? I mean, that's a question. I think Travis Benjamin could be a little bit safer, but I think Tajay Sharp's going to see more targets throughout the season. He's the number one out there. Travis Benjamin still has Tyrell Williams matched up against him to see who will come out with more targets out of the receivers. So I guess Tajay Sharp, but I wouldn't mind Travis Benjamin either. But just one of those two. Everybody else, screw him.
All right, next question. James Williams from Renton, Washington. He wants to know, Doug Martin versus Arizona, Thomas Rawls versus St. Louis, Gurley versus Seattle, Spencer Ware versus Houston. He needs 2.
Well, Houston's a tough matchup, but you got to go with Spencer Ware after he did what he did last week. And who were the other ones you said? Who was the second guy? I think that's
Thomas Rawls versus St. Louis.
Yeah, you got to go with Thomas Rawls versus St. Louis. Like you said, Jim, he was named the number 1 starter out there.
Agreed,
again.
yep.
Christian Michael blew it. He had a good matchup. He didn't get it done. So, I mean, that's what happens. If he'd have went out there and ran for 100 yards, he'd probably be starting this week. But St. Louis looked like garbage last week. Go with Thomas Rawls.
St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
L.A.,
whatever. You know who it is.
Yeah.
Mario Castro wants to know, is Vincent Jackson worth owning?
All day, you were
Yeah.
just talking him up.
We were just talking about him being a sleeper.
He's not even comatose.
He was one of my, not necessarily a sleeper coming into the season. I thought of him as a value pick coming into the season as well.
Especially if someone else gets hurt, except for him, then he'll be there.
Believe it.
Last question. Christopher Trantham wants to know, he has Osweiler and Brady as QBs. Flacco's on waivers. He also has Gronk and Hopkins. Do you drop Osweiler for Flacco or keep rocking with him until Brady is back?
Well, you know, when Brady comes back, you're going to be starting him, so it's only a couple weeks away, so why not drop him, pick up Joe Flacco if you think he's going to have a better week, play him, and then you'll find someone else next week. We'll give you another sleeper.
That's it. 4 questions. Dash answered them. Fantasy genius. If you guys hear these answers, you got to play what he says or you're going to lose.
Fantasy knowledge.
Believe it. Any other questions, comments you have, fans, hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Hit me up on Twitter at betjimtowin. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Keep coming back to YouTube. Everybody click subscribe.
One last question. Sleeper defense this week.
Who does the LA Rams play? Whoever Cleveland plays. That'd be the Baltimore Ravens. We both took them on our daily fantasy, the Baltimore Ravens.
That's it.
We're locked on Ravens and
Raising it up.
bird call.